This episode is brought to you by the generous donations of our sponsors, Joe and Renda Ghazal, Dr. Malik and Dr. Rana Najjar, Nabil and Dad Al-Mashtoob, Wael and Diana Fayyad, Mike and Salam Ghaida. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to the Network 1017 podcast, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Ramzi and Ramona Dakour. They're both, one is a physician and the other one's a pediatrician. So Ramona is the pediatrician, Ramzi is the family physician, correct?
Yeah, we're both physicians, yeah.
Okay, so both physicians, both working in the same business, and both are from Texas, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, guys. So we're all really excited to have you on here because we actually have never had anybody who's medical based in on the podcast, actually. So we have a lot of questions to ask you. But before I even get started on asking anything about your careers, I actually really want to start by asking, how'd you guys meet? And where did you meet? And then also, most importantly, how'd you both end up in Texas? So,
yeah. Who wants to go?
Well, we actually met at the Miami convention in 2011. We had kind of been talking a little bit earlier before that. We were introduced through a family friend, Munir Zainuddin, and we met in July 2011 at the convention, and we're engaged in November 2011.
It's pretty fast.
Wow.
But we're both from Texas. So Ramsey's from near Austin called Round Rock, and I grew up in Beaumont, Texas. So, and so we were both, I was in residency at the time, and he had just graduated from, he just had become a family doctor from residency. And so he was working near Austin, and we just, met and got married. And then we joined practices. So we decided to work together, and we opened up our own practice in Beaumont. So we decided to come here because we had the opportunity to build our own practice. And my dad was a physician here already, and he had a practice going, and he was going to start to slow down. So we just kind of came in and made it our own. So, yeah.
Wow. So you both own practices yourselves, and then you just combined, you decided you wanted to work together.
So no, we were always working for somebody. So I was working at Texas Children's Hospital. I graduated from Baylor College of Medicine, Texas Children's, and I joined them for faculty.
Right.
And then he was working in Austin.
Yeah, I was working at Austin Diagnostic Clinic.
Okay.
We're both employed. So when we moved to Beaumont, we opened up our own practice together.
Yeah, we didn't want to work for anybody anymore. So we decided to open our own thing.
So then what, were you afraid though? Because sometimes people are like, oh, when married couples work together, chaos happens, this, and then people just have fears. Did you guys have fears?
No, it's been great. We actually don't see a lot of each other, even though we're in the same practice, because we're both we have separate sort of areas that we work in. But it's great. We get to have lunch together every day, and we have a little baby that comes and sees us. We have two boys, and so one of our boys comes up at lunch, the little one. He's 15 months old. So my nanny comes and brings him up. And so we all have lunch together every day. So it's great. And then if we ever have questions about patients, we want to bounce back ideas, we have each other. So it's awesome.
No, it's worked really well so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been running this practice for?
Since August 2014, so 5 years.
Yeah. Wow.
It's been 5 years.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's been great. We've enjoyed it. It's nice being your boss.
Yes, that I agree with. I understand. What is why go into being a pediatrician? Like, what was that? Why did you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I have to say, I love children, and my dad was a pediatrician too. So I kind of grew up watching him, and I loved the way he loved his job. Families loved him, his patients loved him. He just, it looked like he was making a difference. And so I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I think deep down I wanted to be a pediatrician, but I did want to explore ideas. So when I got into med school, I stayed open to everything, but it was pediatrics that I loved. I've always just had a connection with children. And I think, of course, my dad influenced me, I'm sure, I keep saying, no, I would have done it anyway, but no, he definitely influenced me. He was a great physician, and I loved the impact that he made on his patients and his families. And I love the idea of working with kids and their parents, and just educating. I think kids, there's so much you can teach and so much you can do to make a difference in kids. And so not just by by treating them as a physician, but also just educating them. And there's so much that goes into being a pediatrician, besides just treating them for illness, you know.
Preventative care, a lot of preventative.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, because it really shows that you love your job, and most importantly, you want to make a difference in young kids' lives. So that's hard, because you don't usually find sometimes doctors that are super passionate. Some are just like kind of just doing the job, right? But it really shows that.
No, I think for you to become a doctor, you really have to love what you do. It's just it's a lot of work and a lot of effort to become one. So it's like, by the time you get there, you better love what you're doing. Yeah. Or it's going to be a depressing life.
Yeah, because it's a very hard job. It's not easy, you know. And so also to run your own business at the same time, it's difficult. You're playing two different hats almost, you know. You're serving clients, and then you're also having to take on a business, you know, development role. So.
Right. And we also, you know, my mom managed my dad's practice. And so it was helpful. She has, you know, she's got the experience too. So she's still helping run our practice for sure. Like, we wouldn't have been able to do it without both my parents at that point. It would have been really hard. We could have, but it would have been really hard.
Right.
So we were just really lucky.
So it sounds like a really beautiful family business. You guys seem to work really well together and complement each other.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It's great.
So to be a family physician so your husband, so Ramsey, so you're just you're a family physician. What made you, how did you get into that role? Was it your parents were also doctors, or it's just you figured that medical?
No, I didn't have any doctors in my family. I just really like family medicine because there's a lot of different things you can do in family medicine. You can kind of tailor it to however you want. You know, you could see children all the way up to adults. You know, it's never boring, because it's not the same things over and over. It's a lot of different things all the time. And also I get to spend a lot of time with the patients. I spend a lot of time with my patients, and just really, you get to know them very well, and just you don't miss things because you're spending time with them, and really you know, it's just really impactful. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so we actually, like, a lot of our patients, we kind of share some of the, so I'll see like the little kids, and if they have, and then like the parents and grandparents, a lot of times we'll see him. So it's like we see all ages, from newborn to geriatrics.
Or the older teenagers, like especially the boys.
Yeah,
or once
boys
they turn 18. So so we see a lot of families, like things of, you know, extended families, like mothers, fathers, children's, and then the grandparents are all in our practice. Yeah,
like we'll see generations in one practice, which is really neat. So
amazing.
You really kind of become attached to your patients. You get to know them.
Yeah.
So it's pretty.
What would you say was let's start with this one. What would you say is your strengths, Ramona, and then your strengths, Ramsey, and how do you think that complemented each other really well when you joined practices? And then the weaknesses, right? So like what were they that you found that it was like made such a beautiful business together?
Well, I mean, I think we both had like a goal and a dream. Like, we both had a goal that we wanted to create the best practice we could possibly create to make a difference, like to really help the people in our community. It's a small town, so we wanted to make sure that what we did was going to make a difference and was going to help people in all ways. Like, and so I think our strength, both of us, is that we had that goal. We shared a goal, and we went for it. And so we always knew what we wanted. And so I think if you just stay on that track, then you know you can achieve what you want to achieve. But there's always you know, roadblocks that you have to hit and things that you have to deal with. But I don't know, our weaknesses, we all have weaknesses.
But we help each other out. I mean,
I think we
always like there's always things we ask each other. Like, she's really good at rashes, for instance, and if I have a rash that, you know, is kind of befuddling me, I'll go ask her. And
like hypertension, like things that I don't deal with. Like things that I don't deal with a lot, like high blood pressure in a child, or, you know, like obesity, which we see a lot of. But when it starts to get like more things that you see more in adulthood, or diabetes that we're starting to see a lot in kids now, I always go to him. I'm like, okay, so like, you know, just for advice and stuff. So as far as medical, we complement each other a lot. So things that I need, probably that, you know, that I have questions about, he has the answers to, and vice versa. Yeah, I was trying to think of what other weaknesses we might have, but also for both of us, I was going to say, just personality wise, like in times where I'm like really stressed out, I'll go to him and he'll like calm me down, and vice versa. So
that's true.
There's always one that's calmer than the other that day, I feel like, and so it works out pretty well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can get really busy and chaotic, and so it's nice to have somebody that you know you could go back to and just like get away from, and like and you know, tell them, hey, you need to help calm me down a little bit, or you know.
Sounds like you guys have very good communication with each other, which is I'm assuming is very, very important in your just doing it in business, working together in business, and also working together in marriage as well. So
it's very important in medicine in general.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me about what tactics have you used in your practice? So let's just say someone out there, he's a doctor coming out of college, and he actually really wants to pursue this and actually open up in his own practice or her own practice. So what would you suggest to them as they're starting out? From your experience, what advice would you give them going forward?
Yeah. So I actually have, we actually do teach med students and nurse practitioners. So I have a medical student that comes from UTMB and sometimes other schools like year round now. So every 2 weeks I get a new med student. So I always have medical students rotating with me. And so, you know, as far as like building your own practice, it's getting harder and harder to do that, I would say, in this day and age. Like, most people that are coming out of residency are just going to work for a big hospital or a big, you know, organization. It's just, you know, unless you live in a really small town or a smaller town, it is really hard to build your own practice. So some people who have a mindset, like some of these students have a mindset that they do want to open their own practice, but I feel like a lot of them already know where they're going. Like they know that they're going to go to a small town, but if you're going to be in Houston or Dallas or whatever, it's going to be really hard unless you join a big practice. But
yeah, I mean, my advice too would be, you know, start in residency, thinking about, like even where you're going to open up your practice, if you're going to open it up, and just start early, because it's, I mean,
it takes time.
You can't just graduate residency and think you're going to open up your practice in a couple of months.
Right.
There's a lot of legwork that's involved, and you can take courses in residency about you know, medical business management, and like there's a journal for family medicine called American Family Management. So it talks to you all about, it's a journal just about the business side of it. And so, you know, those are resources, but you got to start early. I mean, you got to really start thinking about it, you know, like your second year residency, if you really want to open up your practice.
I think for both of us, I mean, we started off, when you get out of residency, you want to kind of get a job right away, right? You're probably in debt. You know, so you're going to get a, and you'll get a job quickly, but it is really common for physicians to kind of jump around those first few years that they come out of residency trying to figure out what they want to do. And so I think that's important for everybody. Like they're going to figure it out, you know, once they get out and they start to work, if they like what they're doing, or if they don't like what they're doing. But it is, you know, it's like any other job. You're going to have to figure out where you feel like you fit in, what city you fit in, and what kind of practice do you want? Do you want to practice that's in a rural area? Do you want it in an urban area? You know, and it's different things that you see depending on where you live. So just kind of depends on what kind of doctor you are and what you want to do.
Well, how do you guys feel? So you said something important. You said that it's harder and harder as, you know, as time goes on to open up a practice, because you have to open up in certain areas. How do you feel about online people working with doctors virtually? Because I've started to see that actually. A lot of people have been bypassing the co-pays, I guess you can say. And I've started seeing people actually talking to the doctors online about the problems they're having. How do you feel about that, owning your own practice, that people can come see you in person?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's some limited uses to it. Like, for instance, I know psychiatrists do it a lot.
I think it's good for psychiatry.
You know, because you don't necessarily have to really lay hands on the patient at all. You know, maybe for certain acute things like rashes and, you know, colds and stuff like that, may be okay. But I mean, you really have to be in the room with the patient and examining them in order to make a good diagnosis. So, I know, for
Yeah.
instance, my cousin's pediatrician in Washington, D.C., she does like 2 hours a couple of days a week after clinic to do like telemedicine,
Oh, wow.
just for acute things like that, rashes and colds and stuff like that. Because some, parents can't bring
Right.
their children during the, during the work hours and stuff like that. So there's some there is benefit to it, but there's also like legal pitfalls that you have to be aware of as well. So,
Yeah.
That makes sense. You said you have a cousin in DC. I live in DC.
Yeah. He actually lives in Virginia now.
Oh,
Joey
cool.
Rasamny.
Was
Yeah.
it his name?
Joey Rasamny, his wife Linda Rasamny.
I don't know them.
Yeah.
That's cool. They live in my area. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, I mean, that makes sense. It sounds like a lot of things. It's not something that can really grow because you're limited to how much you can help your patients virtually.
Right.
Yeah.
I was always curious how that's going to move because they started making that transition. So I didn't quite understand it. It makes sense. You have to be there in person. So that's something that's hard.
Yeah.
I guess it's good for you because you always know you need a doctor.
I mean, there's some professions where that kind of advancement in technology makes sense, but really in medicine,
For primary care, it's hard.
It's hard. I mean, I don't think everything can be as advanced in that type of technology, in medicine as you can with other professions.
Yeah.
Like all this virtual stuff, and just my opinion.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? So
yeah.
Now I don't want to forget Joe's questions because he's going to kill me. So let me ask him. So he says one of the first questions, I told you guys about this one before. He says, can you share with our listeners the importance of vaccines and the risks to individuals and public by declining, and the risks to individuals and public by declining to take vaccines?
Yeah. So this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about in medicine. So
I'm actually curious. I
actually
don't like vaccines. So I'm actually curious as to why they may be beneficial or why they, just hearing your opinion.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start by saying that vaccines have been the single most, the single best achievement in medicine in all of like modern medicine right now.
Save more lives than anything.
Right. And
We're
so
up there with penicillin.
It's one of the greatest achievements we've ever done in the history of medicine is vaccinations. And so, and it's something that we constantly, I'm always educating patients about in the office because I mean, especially parents who are coming and they're new parents and they're like, well, I want to know what you're injecting my kid with. I mean, and they'll come in with all kinds of ideas, and there's a lot of misinformation out on the internet. So it's really important that what I advise people to do is always ask your physician any concerns or questions you have so that we can actually tell you what the real truth is about vaccinations, because there is a lot of stuff out there that can be really scary and it can kind of suck you in about vaccines. But basically what we're doing in the first year of life for these kids is we're giving them vaccines. So we're injecting them with either an inactivated form. Well, actually the first year of life, they're all inactivated forms of viruses or types of bacteria that you inject into their muscle. And what that does is it causes an immune response, right? That allows you to create like memory immune response, so that if you actually did get the virus or the bacteria to harm you, then your body will know instantly what to do and how to fight it off so you don't actually get infected. And so what we're trying to prevent kids from getting are things like meningitis and polio and whooping cough and diphtheria and there's all kinds. The first few years of life, these were things that used to kill kids left and right. Like before these vaccines were invented, I mean, kids were dying of meningitis. Even when I was young and my dad was a pediatrician, I remember him having kids die of meningitis before the vaccine came out, or become brain dead or mentally retarded because they didn't get the vaccine because those vaccines weren't out and they had already gotten meningitis, which is infection in your brain. And so now we don't see that as much, and it's still there. I mean, so the most common causes of meningitis in kids under a year old is something called pneumococcal, and then the other one is called Haemophilus influenza. These were the two most common causes of meningitis in children, and now we have vaccines that prevent you from getting those. And it's not like these bacteria aren't here. They are. The bacteria is here, but we have vaccines that prevent you from getting it. So by you not vaccinating you carry the risk of, having your child or getting infected with this bacteria that can be really harmful and dangerous to these kids. And not only that, by not vaccinating your kids, you're not only, putting your own kids at risk, but you're putting others at risk. Kids that are, for instance, on chemotherapy or are immune suppressed or have cancer or some kind of autoimmune disease that you can't necessarily vaccinate them yet because their immune system just doesn't work. Or for newborn babies who don't get the vaccines yet. So you're putting all those kids at risk as well. And so there's something, we talk about herd immunity. What that means is the more you vaccinate people, you're also creating immunity for the people around you that haven't been vaccinated or who couldn't get vaccinated. And so the more we vaccinate, you're also protecting your community, those that are at high risk of getting this bacteria or this kind of virus that can, that they can't get a vaccine for one reason or another.
And you have to vaccinate to a certain level too, like with herd immunity. So, to reach herd immunity so that the whole population, even the ones who can't get the vaccine are safe, you have to vaccinate around 90% of the population. So that's why you see in some places where the vaccination rates for measles has dropped to like 50, 60, 70%. There's big outbreaks over there because they haven't reached that critical level yet. And I think that's something that the younger generation doesn't understand because we haven't seen those diseases like polio and big measles outbreaks and stuff like that. But,
it's out there.
56 years ago, there were, people dying by the thousands of those, everywhere.
And still people are dying. I mean, still hundreds of thousands of kids die of measles every year worldwide. So it's not like the stuff isn't here. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands. I mean, that's how many kids are dying of stuff, of preventable diseases. These are vaccine preventable diseases. So there should be really absolutely no reason not to vaccinate unless you have obviously like some kind of autoimmune, something that doesn't allow you to get vaccinated, or, you're immune compromised, or, some kind of medical reason. But otherwise, if you're a healthy kid and you're, born full term and no complications, everybody should be vaccinated. There isn't a reason not to vaccinate.
Right. And so, okay, quick question. And then, for example, I've always been vaccinated, right? But does it affect the body in any way, right? Is there symptoms to it when a kid gets vaccinated? I know it protects them, right? But does it?
Right. So like any injection or, there's going to be mild side effects for sure. And so those
mild, but transient.
Yeah, transient. So there's more, these are the more common, let's say the more common side effects. They don't always happen, but they can happen. So what I mean by mild is maybe some irritation or some redness around the area of injection. Sometimes they can get a little fever, sometimes a little fussiness afterwards. But all this stuff, like he said, is transient and it's usually gone by the next day. So for instance, my kids, I have 2 boys. My first one, every time I vaccinated him for his 2, 4, and 6 months, he had fever all the time, like every time. And I knew it was coming, but by the next day he was fine. And to me, I actually, not like enjoy that he had fever, but I was okay with it because I knew his body was working to prevent him, was working. Because whatever your immune response is activated, things that are part of your immune system is fever. So I knew that his immune system was responding to the vaccine. So for me, I was okay with it. And that's what I tell parents, and most parents understand that, like, if your kid has fever, it's okay. That's your body, that's your kid's way of fighting, of creating an immune response to these vaccines. So that's a good thing, and so those are the main side effects. And then of course, the more severe ones would be something like an allergic reaction, or we call it anaphylaxis. Really rare, but it can happen. Like any medication that you give, you could think of vaccines like a medicine. So of course you could have some kind of alert, but it's very, very rare that happens.
Or something called Guillain-Barré, but that's also very, very rare too. That's like
what is that?
Kind of like a paralysis, but that's very, very rare.
Yeah, and it's mostly transient as well. So I mean, there's things that can happen, but those are very, 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 very rare for that to happen.
So it sounds like the vaccines are actually really beneficial to people, that it's not really causing any major side effects afterwards.
Right. I mean, we wouldn't be like, as a pediatrician, I wouldn't be giving my patients anything that I wouldn't give my own kids, right? And so I wouldn't, and we're pediatricians, right? We're here to protect children.
Right.
So we wouldn't be vaccinated if we didn't believe in them, and we didn't, if we knew that they were going to make a difference and protect these kids. And we all want what's best for our kids. We all want them protected.
Right.
And so honestly, and I always tell parents and like reassure them, this is the best thing you could do for your child at this age. Because it's so important. I mean, for kids who are not vaccinated, it's just so risky. And for what reason? There's no reason.
Right.
They're really safe. And then I did want to touch on one thing, because this is always something that comes up. And so one of the other questions I get from parents is, well, I heard they cause autism. Okay. And I do want to talk about this because there's also a lot of misinformation about this as well. And I cannot stress enough how vaccines, there is no causal relationship between vaccinations and autism. Absolutely no. Like we've done so many studies. Probably we've spent billions of dollars on evidence-based medicine to show that vaccines do not cause autism, or to even try to find a link between vaccines and autism. And there is absolutely no link. So the reason why it came out that way is because there was a guy named Andrew Wakefield who had his license removed, stripped, because he falsified information in a study saying that they do cause autism because of mercury in the vaccines. And since then, but that study got removed right away after they realized that it was all falsified information, and he got his license removed. But this guy is still around, and he still has plenty of followers that think that, like, that there was some controversy, that some like the government was out to get him, or that they're trying to hide something. But in reality, the facts are there, and the fact is that vaccines don't cause autism. And what we do know about autism is, and this is why I wish that we could like move on, so we could try to figure out what is causing autism. So like, we know some risk factors that cause autism. We know that it's that happens prenatally. We know that maternal and paternal age are risk factors. So the older your parents are, the more likely your kid could have autism. We know that there's a genetic factor to it. We know that it happens more in males than females. So we're learning things about it, but we obviously don't know. There's a lot of factors that go into place to cause autism, and we're still trying to figure it out. But it definitely is not vaccine. So I just always, I want to just stress that and reassure families that there's no link between vaccines and autism. And so
I didn't even know people were linking that together. I always just thought people didn't do vaccines because they were like, oh, you're putting something in my body. Like, I mean, we are putting something in your body, but we're putting something in your body that will protect you. So, and I will tell you.
And that you might get anyways, and you might as well get it in the form of a vaccine or to protect you. Yeah.
And then the other concern I always get from parents is, well, why do we have to do them all at one time? Why is my kid getting 5 or 6 shots, or 4 or 5 shots, or whatever? Why does it have to be all at one time? Well, I will tell you that each vaccine is a single antigen. Okay. So like for the pneumococcal vaccine, which is the most common cause of meningitis, pneumonia, it's one antigen. So when your body gets attacked by a cold or a virus, when you have a cold, if you wake up with a cold, your body's being attacked by about 20 to 30 antigens, and your body can fight that off. Each vaccine is one antigen. So if I'm giving you 4 or 5 shots, it's like, sometimes a shot has 2 or 3 antigens in it, but let's say like the DTaP is as 3 and 1. Okay. That's 3 antigens. Okay. So at the most, you're getting about like, let's say 6 or 7 antigens at the most. I mean, in a child, and your body can fight that off. It's not anything that your body cannot fight. And again, these are really inactivated forms of viruses and bacteria that your body can fight off. So I try to stress to parents that it's better to give them all at one time. The reason why we do this is so that we're protecting your child when they're most susceptible to these diseases. And so it is at their 2-month and their 4-month and their 6-month and their 1 year. We're protecting your child. That's the reason why we give it. And that's how the studies have been shown. And the reason we start them at 2 months is because their immune system is finally starting to mature, and they can finally make a response to the vaccines. And so that's why we have to wait until they're 2 months. So when I say that window of newborns, it's really important. The reason why we are vaccinated is to protect also those newborns that haven't been vaccinated yet, because they can't be vaccinated yet. So just to kind of give you an idea of and so there's really no reason to break them up, and so and also they've done studies, 1 shot versus 5 shots. It's the same stress level on the child in general. So your baby's going to cry either way, right? And your cortisol level, which is the stress hormone in your body, is going to go up the same amount. And so by you spacing them out and coming in every week to get a new shot, you're actually causing more stress on your child. Not on like the body, but just on the stress of your child going through screaming and crying every time you get a shot. So it's better just to do them all at one time and knock them out.
Right.
Your child will be okay.
I also
Can you
not
tell-
know these stuff, so it's amazing.
Can you tell that she's passionate about this?
Yeah. I can tell you're getting bored, but I have to like.
No,
I have to,
I'm not
stress
bored.
it out.
Let me tell you, I'm not bored. Anything that comes to the body, your health, I'm never bored about it. I just actually never knew about these stuff. Like I honestly, my thought process was like, well, let me just, do it the very old school way, try to be holistic, not put anything in my body, even though I'm always getting my vaccines and I hate it, but I never really understood why I was always getting it. I was always just told by my pediatrician, just take it. It's good for you.
Yeah. No, it's important to ask. It's really important to ask. I mean, this is your body. You want to know what you're getting.
Right.
And it's kind of weird to have things injected into. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a legitimate, concern. But
That's why it just takes
You know,
education and like reasons why we do this too.
Right. When you're a kid and you're like young and your mom's like, take the vaccine, and you're like, okay, mom. But yeah.
But I'll stop talking for a second. We did want to focus on the HPV vaccine. I don't know if you've heard of the Gardasil vaccine. That's the one that prevents cervical cancers.
Oh, wow.
Penile cancers, oral cancers, rectal cancers. And we did want to focus on that a little bit because that's a newer vaccine that's out.
So when did this vaccine come out? And has there been any studies done about like success stories about it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it's called the Gardasil vaccine, by the way.
Yeah. It's new. So it came out like in the early 2000s.
Came out about 10 years ago.
About 10, 15 years ago, something like that.
Wow, it's not recent.
Yeah. It's our most recent one though.
Yeah. Yeah. But like it's really the only vaccine out there that can actually
Oh, I lost you.
Because HPV is the leading cause of cervical cancer in women, and to a lesser extent some other types of cancers like oral cancers and guys. But yeah, I mean, it's a vaccine that that has really helped like reduce the rate of cervical cancers. They've had it in Australia for longer, and so they've done more studies on it.
Why in Australia longer? Is it just because they're more on top of it in that country?
Yeah,
yes,
I think
that's correct.
Yeah, I think usually the countries with socialized medicine are a lot of times more on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, the number of HPV the HPV infection rate in like young teenage girls has gone down about 90%, and up to age 30 has gone down like around 70% in the U.S. It's HPV is something that you get from close intimate contact or sexual contact. So it's really prevalent. About 80% of people will have HPV on their body at some point in their lifetime.
It's in the U.S. 80%.
Yeah,
and 10% of those guys will turn into cancer.
Yeah, and so most of the time your body just gets rid of it on its own, but you can't predict when it's gonna actually cause cancer when it's not.
Right.
And so it's really important that you get that vaccine when you're young. Like you get as early as 9 years old for girls, before you reach puberty and everything. It's more effective because at that point you probably haven't been exposed to HPV. So but yeah, I mean, it's like 99% effective as far as like protecting you against the strains of HPV that can cause cancer. So
okay, so then, and you said you have to take it as early as 9 years old. I'm gonna ask my
Well,
doctor.
so typically we give it at their 11-year vaccines. Okay, so at 11 and 12 they require vaccines before they enter 7th grade.
Okay.
And so we usually give it along with like they need their meningitis shot and their tetanus shot, for instance, at that age. So we go ahead and add the HPV at that point.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, so it's just a time where and it's not about like it's what we like to focus on is that it's preventing cancer. Okay, it has nothing to do with how you get it. It's about how you want to prevent your child from getting it. Because, and it's the reason why we get pap smears as women. So why do we get pap smears? Why do we go to our gynecologist? It's because we're looking for the changes in our cervical cells that can lead to cancer. And those cervical changes in the cells are caused by human papillomavirus. And the vaccine that you get prevents you from getting the strains of human papillomavirus that turn into cancer. And so, it's so effective. It's so effective that even that is causing herd immunity.
Wow.
What we talked about earlier was, the more you get back, the more people that are vaccinated, you're actually protecting your community as well, because those guys that are getting vaccinated aren't getting HPV. So there's less spreading of the disease. So it's working really well, but we do a really poor job in the US of vaccinating for HPV.
Right.
And under 50% are vaccinated.
Yeah.
And so we really need to, and so I focus in my office a lot on education on this shot. I think there's just a lot of controversy. You're like, oh, well, my kid will never have sex and blah, blah, blah. But it's not about that. You also never know, your kid is eventually going to, whether you like it or not, your kid's eventually going to get married, probably, if not, you never know, but you get it from contact. So, it's an easy way of preventing cancer. There's like no reason not to get it. It's safe, it's effective, it works so well. It's one of our most effective vaccines. So.
Right. So what is it called again?
The Gardasil
vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have up until 26 years of age to get it.
Okay.
And the earlier you get it, though, the better. So under 15 years of age, you only need to get 2 shots. After 15, you need to get 3. It's just the way our immune system is. So in kids, your immune system is a little bit more responsive. So you only need 2 vaccines at that point.
So parents are going to probably be listening to this most likely. What are the top vaccines their children should be taking? So I'm assuming it's the one you just said, right? Gardasil vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what else was the others that you mentioned?
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Well, most
there isn't a reason not to get any of them. We wouldn't be doing this.
I mean, most vaccines your state will require to get them to go to school anyways. Like a meningitis shot to go to college. So, like some of them are more optional. Like HPV is not required, but you still should get that.
Get it,
flu, you should still get your flu shot every year, even though there are some years where the flu shot is not great. It's not that effective. But it still reduces your risk of getting it, and there's really no downside. So, I mean, you might as well get it because there are a handful of cases each year of people who die of flu, and you just can't predict that. So okay, then in that case, when you take a vaccine, right? Do you have to take it again? Is it only one time?
It depends on the vaccine. So. A lot of them do require boosters. Actually, all of them do. Now that I think about it.
Require what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
All of them require boosters. We call them boosters. So you need another shot to boost your immunity. It's just the way our immune system is. The more your immune system is in contact with the disease, the stronger your immune system is. You build more cells that protect you. And so you want that kind of recurrent contact with it. So you're building immunity this way. So they all require a few vaccines. It's like a few years.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask you this question because I don't know if we did ask it, but Joe said back to school, how to boost immunity. I guess it's through what you've just been talking about.
Yeah, so flu vaccine. And I think you wanted to focus on just really good hand hygiene and, teaching your kids how to like cough in their arm, cough in your elbow, don't cough in your hand, always wash your hands.
Right.
Just, most of it is just really good hand hygiene. And if your kid is sick, don't send them to school. Like that's how disease spreads. We already have a flu outbreak here and it's not even flu. I mean, I guess flu season is around now, but yeah.
How do parents protect themselves? I mean, like for me, like if my siblings are sick or my parents are sick, I'm always like all over them. Like I'm trying to help everybody, but then I would end up getting sick, right? Yeah. So that's the worst thing, especially I'm assuming newborns, like that's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, again,
same thing. Yeah. I mean, the best thing to prevent, like you're not gonna, like a cold, there's no vaccine for that. So you're gonna get colds, if you're in close contact. So you got to wash your hands really well and, stay away from, stay like 3 to 6 feet away from people who are coughing because it's spread through the cough droplets. But the best thing to prevent disease or infectious disease are the vaccines. That's going to be your best line of defense.
And then with
But-
colds and things like that, I mean, there's viruses, there's thousands of viruses, you know, everywhere. And so you can't like,
Prevent
it's okay. It's okay if your body gets sick every once in a while. It's okay. Cause that's,
But like
your body has ways of
I
fighting
mean, like,
it off.
natural things to boost your immunity, really like getting well rested, like the
Drinking lots of
the
water.
more stress your body's under, like it's going
Right.
to affect your immune system. It's going to lower your immune system. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you know, that's going to put stress on your body. So
Exercise, drink
so-
lots of water,
Yeah.
you know, just good lifestyle, choices, you know,
yeah.
I love
is
that.
the best to do. Yeah.
Well, I know we're almost time to end, but I always ask this question. It's my favorite question to ask everybody that gets on the show. So I'm gonna ask to both of you, and you guys have to have separate. You don't have to have separate answers. I'm sure because you work together. But what's one truth you found to be true just for you on your journeys that you would like to share with the rest of us? Does that make sense?
Yes. What's one truth that you
You
well-
found to be true for you.
well, you know, I think for like medicine and just running a business in general, I think it's just really important to like remain ethical and just, you know, like,
Be honest.
yeah, like, I mean sometimes in business, you know, there may be more ways to make money by kind of like skirting some issues like that, but I think just remain ethical, remain yourself, do something that you know you're going to be proud of at the end of the day, and you're not going to have regrets or second thoughts. So and that's like important in medicine too, like you know, you just always like treat every patient the same, no matter who the patient is, and just always have the, you know, their best interests in mind. So just remaining ethical.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer. Dave.
It's the most important thing in being a doctor is being ethical and just really doing the research. And it sounds like you guys have, and that's why you're so passionate about what you do, which I love. Unfortunately, I'm not in Texas. Wish I could use you guys. My family probably would love to go to you guys, but yallah. Maybe we'll open one.
If you ever come to Beaumont for any reason at all, we're here.
Yeah.
Or Texas for that matter. Thank you.
Of course, guys, listen, it's been a pleasure. I'm really excited to post this episode up soon. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions, especially coming from two medical doctors. I think this is going to be really important for everyone to listen to, because everyone has a pediatrician and not everyone knows if they're doing the right thing, right? Or getting the right stuff. So I really appreciate you guys for what you do. And on behalf of Network 1017, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Till next time, guys. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.